Greetings, my name is Masachala. I'm the CEO and founder of Indie Park Human Capital. We are your guide to building and sustaining a high-performance culture. Welcome to the Moments of Impact. March the 8th is recognized as International Women's Day. This year, the United Nations decided to shine a spotlight on those women who trailed the race in digital innovation and technological advancement. With that in mind, perhaps you're wondering who our guest is today. Here's a little glimpse into her pioneering and inspiring work. At the age of 34, she was the youngest board member at ABSA. And yes, she is famed for consolidating all those different banks under one umbrella, Amalgamated Banks of South Africa, simply known as ABSA. At 48, 2 years shy of 50, she was the youngest chancellor to head up the Nelson Mandela University. During that time, we saw the University of Port Elizabeth rebrand and reposition as a chief marketing officer at NTN. She was part of a team, or rather she was heading a team that put NTN as the only African brand on the global 100 brand list worldwide. You've guessed it right, her name, Santie Botha. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. How do you do?
Hello, Masachala. Nice to be here.
What an honor.
It's an honor for me to be with you today.
Santie, chairperson, hero, Capitec, famous brand. But here's the thing, she's always at the right place at the right time. In 1996, she leaves London for South Africa. What prompted the move?
Well, I was at Unilever for about 9 years at the time. So the option was to go to Switzerland, because as an international expat, Unilever being a multinational, you go from country to country. So I left Durban and I went to London, and the next country was Switzerland. And at the time, Nelson Mandela was president of South Africa. I actually left the country when he was just released from prison, but he wasn't president yet. And I sort of thought, well, you can only eat so many cheese fondues. And South Africa being a new country, 1996 with a new president, democratically elected, maybe I should go back to my new country. At the time, ABSA was looking for a chief marketing officer, so it was serendipitous, Also, I knew nothing about banking at the time, coming from consumer goods, but I'd say it was one of the best decisions of my life.
Santie is being very humble at this point. In many interviews, I've heard you say that second best should never be good enough. You also talk about the best in class being afforded the best opportunities. What do you consider to be the makings of a good leader?
A good leader for me is, I always start with the word authenticity. I always say be yourself first. Before you put anything else on the table, be yourself first. Because if you feel you acting, you should rather be in Hollywood and not in business. So for me, authenticity is absolutely crucial. The second thing is have a big vision, also understand the business. Because often people have tremendous visions, they've been in pockets of business, but they don't understand the intrinsic of what a business is about. So for me, it's important to understand the business. And you have to have the EQ to know that there are people in this world, specialist point of view, that will be a lot better than what you are in certain disciplines. And when you find them, that for me is always jackpot. To say my team, in terms of the specialist people I have around the table, is the A team. Because you never win with a B team in anything. It's a people business, and you know it yourself, coming from sort of the HR profession. It's about people. Also, driving the task. So a lot of people in the old days would say, is this leader task-orientated or people-orientated. Today, with the big issue of mental wellness in the workplace, it's absolutely essential to be focused on the task at hand, but also on making sure your people are okay.
The 18. And the attributes that makes the 18. Is it what you studied? Is it your EQ? Is it your emotional intelligence? Is it how you present yourself? What attributes does one need to develop to survive the as-is?
18, I'm now talking about, say, at executive level. Nowadays, young people want to get there at lightning speed. You know, where for me is when I started out, I knew I had to do X, Y, Z before I could get there. And then I had to do a few different things with more responsibility to get there. When I got there, and that's how you climbed, you know, the corporate ladder, where nowadays people want quick fixes to get to the top very quickly. Where for me, an 18 player is, when I say best in class, from a specialist point of view, you've got to be able to do the fundamentals. And let's use a chartered accountant for argument's sake. So you're the CFO of the business. It's one thing to understand the financials and IFRS and all those good things. It's something else to understand that, but also understand the fundamentals of the business, you know, and the operations of the business. To say, if there's a tweak on pricing, the impact it will have on certain other things on the bottom line. Instead of just looking at the income statement and say, okay, this is what I have to deliver to my shareholders. So if I get this, that, and that right here, you know, the shareholders should be fine. You have to do that as well. You have to understand the business. And when the two connect, I just think that's an 18 player. Because 18 players, when you operate in the team at executive level, you can challenge and add value to the other players of it. So whether they're an HR specialist or marketing specialist, you've got the experience base and you add value to each other person on the team. Now that's an 18 in my book.
Without a doubt, Santie has embraced diversity in an attempt to bridge the obvious racial gap. Thank you so much for being a sponsor and a mentor to so many Black female and male leaders to date. How important is diversity for you?
You know, the fact that you say embrace diversity, the way I look at the world is the world is diverse. So I like to put myself, always think about it, in the center of the world. So what do you have to surround yourself with? People of the world. Sameness, for me, is quite boring. And it's not because I'm a marketer at heart, but sameness, I think, same people think the same, do the same, and their world is quite small, irrespective of where you travel or everything else. Because if you don't have people from different cultures, different age groups, different languages, and different classes, you know, and I once said to someone, you know, my housekeeper, like many years back, when I came back from the UK, I would walk down the stairs in the morning and start saying, okay, do this, do that. And the one morning she said to me, morning, Santie. And I thought, lesson. So lessons you learn from everybody in life, but you've got to be open for it. From then onwards, whoever I meet, it's morning or afternoon, and then you start the day. And it's the whole philosophy is you have to be a student and a teacher every day in your life. But you can only be a student and a teacher when you have a diverse skill set. That's what I thrive on.
I'll tell you one story. In 2010, Santie was CFO at MTN. And we all know that during that time, we all uttered the words, Ayoba. That's how inclusive she is. Thank you for championing that.
That was actually, I'll correct you there, yes, it was part of the whole campaign, but that was Sarami Taukable. And Sarami Taukable was then CMO of MTN South Africa, where I headed up the global team. But he headed up the South African team. And he came to me the one day and he says, Santie, what does Ayoba mean to you? And I said, well, clearly you're going to tell me. And he sort of said, it's cool. And he said, that I want to put in as the word to ignite South Africa behind Bafana and the whole World Cup. Do you think it will work? And I said, well, if you think it will work, let's go for it. Because I think often you have to take a risk in whatever you do to really make it come alive. And it worked.
I'm inspired by Santie's fierce competitive spirit. In her own words, second best is not good enough. But you also come across very decisive. How long does it take for you to decide?
It depends on the decision. You know, it's sort of, for me, there's a lot of decisions that's quite easy and you make them immediately. And then there's stuff that you have to sleep on. Where I think when you're young and very impulsive, it's like you make those decisions. I love making decisions, but I think as one gets older, in terms of impact of big decisions, you have to sleep on them. With big decisions, I also like to consult, particularly when it has an impact on many stakeholders. I love input from it, and then I make up my mind. So you give me input on maybe the approach, someone else gives me input on impact, someone else gives me input on particular components of the decision. I take it all into account, and then you make it. Because often if you just act on gut, on big decisions, and you haven't consulted critical stakeholders, you can make big mistakes. So I believe in the consultative process, but then make the call.
Make the call.
Yeah.
You can't let it linger for too long.
No.
What are the circumstances in businesses when decisions don't get made?
You allow too many people to get involved in decisions which actually has got nothing to do with the actual outcome. You have to be outcome oriented and to make sure that whatever decision is made is always in the best interest of the business and not in the best interest of a person or a group of people. Whatever decision is made, like often I look at stuff, when political decisions are made, then I think, is that decision in the best interest of the country or in the best interest of a group of people? And that for me is always my vantage point, to say decisions must be made in the best interest of a business, a country, the world, etc. Because then you know you come from the right place in terms of where you're at.
Now you chair, and I'm sure you are a very engaging board where you chair. You also spoke about how setting key performance indicators and tracking those and holding those that you lead accountable. How can we hold those that lead us accountable?
If you talk about a country, the only way, where I always say, I try and influence and change what I can do. So I do not like hypothesizing about the what ifs in the world if I cannot influence it. So I like to talk about stuff that I can influence and where I can mobilize a group of people in a business kind of environment to make it happen. So I think as people in the community where you live or in the society where you live, make a difference there. I'm not a politician. I've got no ambition to be a politician. And I think all you can do as a tax-paying South African is vote. Because a lot of people abstain and say, and then a lot of people say, but who? Well, just make a decision and just vote. That's all you can really do, I think, as ordinary South Africans. But otherwise, make a difference in the community where you live and what you serve. Because we all serve people, and that's what you have to do.
And you've served us well in the roles that you have assumed. Looking back at your career, you seem to be at the right place at the right time, making the right decisions. I'm hoping at this point you're going to give us a competitive advantage. What roles do you think will be in demand currently in the boards that you serve and are critical and we ought to develop or to aspire to assume?
If you talk about the skill set and the experience set in South Africa, and when you speak to your serious headhunters, IT, digital, data, serious skill set for around the boardroom table, it's hard to find. And when you talk about particular industry, if you talk financial services, serious skill sets, that's retired and have time to really apply your mind, that's hard to find. And I often say to people, if you just talk boardroom, get people that's been in the industry, have time to serve a particular company in terms of adding value to executive management. Because we've all been executives, and when you look at a board, who are the people you respect, And who are the people that you think just keep the chairs warm? And you want people around the table that you can phone after board meetings or can go and sit with for crucial advice that will make your life easier. And that's really what it's about.
I admire how you are quite candid. How you tackle difficult issues. In what circumstances would you be prepared to alienate a team that you're leading?
I don't think you should ever alienate your team. You should never alienate your team. You should rather confront your team with issues to say, okay, if there's particular issues that's going wrong and seriously wrong, is get the team together and to see how should it be fixed. But to alienate the team, then you're on your own. In business, it's always about what I said earlier, a team. And the bigger the problem, usually, the A team rises to the challenge because you've picked them. So you've got to make sure that you also confront the difficult stuff, because that's actually why you're there. Because often when the going is good, it's very easy to look good when the going is good.
Oh, yes.
It's when the going gets really, really, really tough. That's when you see the brilliant people from just your normal B teams.
Do you recall a moment that most impacted your career?
There are many moments, but I'd say one, it's like when you make sometimes mistakes. That's when you learn the most, even if it's very, very difficult. So I have a few of those.
So we should embrace making mistakes. I guess when we do, we are bound to get it wrong.
Yes, because what I always find, if you don't take risks, you don't do big stuff. And if you do big stuff sometimes, they can go spectacularly wrong. But then it's a question of how do you dig deep and how do you fix them?
And that's vulnerable, Santie.
Yeah,
It's vulnerable to make mistakes, particularly at that level with people watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything you do to replenish? How do you recover from that?
Time out just to say lessons learned. Because often in business, we don't reflect enough to say in terms of what we've done here, what has worked exceptionally well, so more of, and when stuff goes spectacularly wrong, what's the lessons learned here that we're never going to repeat again, kind of thing, especially if you're younger. It's like sort of, as you go up the ladder, hopefully you've learned all those lessons and you're never going to make them again. But for younger people in business, you've got to take those risks, make the mistakes, learn from them, and log them some way so that as you move up the ladder, you don't make them again.
Because I find the inability to embrace error and mistakes sometimes stifles you from being able to move to the next.
I agree.
And then you almost observe other people or criticize those that are making decisions because you're not bold enough. But it takes a level of courage, yeah?
Oh, it does. And often what you see in business, there are some people, which I mean, at one stage of my career, I used to say they were sort of quite senior people to say, you actually do nothing risky. And frankly, you do nothing in terms of a fundamental change and moving the business forward. You always have to say, be better prepared than anybody else. So if you say, I'm going into a meeting, this is the topic, I've been invited. Do some work before you walk into that meeting. Be prepared. Have at least an opinion on something. And find the right moment and say it. So that's always, but never second guess yourself and never feel you're not good enough. That's always my message, especially to younger people.
Never second guess yourself. Never feel that you're not good enough. Don't settle for second best. Get work done. What are you reading?
I've just finished Andre Agassi's Open, his autobiography. Fascinating book about a fantastic, crazy life. He was an unorthodox tennis player. All the challenges and obstacles he had to overcome. But what a life. And he's still living it. So, yeah.
Now, I know you've served a few aces in your life. Very colorful life. Thank you for rallying behind South Africa and its people. What would you like to be remembered for when it's all said and done?
I'm not really sure. To be honest with you, it's like sort of, I'm not a legacy kind of person. I just hope the people that know me will say, well, it was great it was great to have her in my life. That's all.
Nadal or Federer?
Djokovic, actually.
No way, Santie. Okay, well, I can see why. Well, Djokovic's story is quite encouraging and inspiring. What he had to go through just to get to play tennis in Serbia is just amazing. It's remarkable. His work ethic matters to none. His attitude, I'm not quite sure.
No, but you know what? Is all three of them are best in class, without a doubt.
Yeah.
All three of them are best in class. Depends on the kind of tennis that you like, and forget about his mannerisms off court. Because for me, off court, it's
Let's focus on court.
It's the on court mentality that he has and the strength of his mindset. You know, because if you say, is Federer a nicer person? He probably is. You know, it's
Swiss and South African born.
Yeah, of course.
Ubuntu must be there somewhere.
But forget about that. So if you just
Okay.
talk tennis,
Okay.
if you just talk tennis, Djokovic is my man.
I would agree because, we don't see Djokovic coming. I think now he's probably on par with both the two tennis players in terms of championships. And he was always second best. And I think something happens when you're second best and you work to become number one.
And I do think he's gonna surpass Nadal. That's my guesstimate.
Nadal's ease of playing?
No, Nadal, in terms of the history books, will be the ultimate clay court specialist ever, without a doubt, and an athlete. But clay is very rough on your physique, and you can see with all his injuries, knees and feet and everything else, it's very rough on the physique. You can say Djokovic is not as good on clay, definitely not.
Hard work, even his tennis is hard. He works hard. But he takes every stroke seriously.
Absolutely. He doesn't work, and none of them have ever walked on the court. You can see it. It's like it's a gladiator kind of mentality. But I just think Djokovic, in terms of the history books, I think in my book, he's the ultimate. Sorry to disappoint you.
It's Federer's charm, and maybe I'm sentimental that he was born in South Africa. Maybe because he's Swiss as well, and he's very effortless and chic, and almost like, I want it, but I don't want it.
The most beautiful, they each have something, but Federer, I would say, has got the most beautiful style of any tennis player ever. You just have to see how he finishes his backhand. Right up there, and every shot is just beautiful.
Oh, so we could learn from both. Thank you so very, very much, Santie.
Thank you, Mr. John.
I can't express my gratitude for what your life has meant for South Africa and for me as a professional. Thank you for affording me the opportunity, the time, and I speak on behalf of the many others that I have engaged whilst preparing for this interview. I do think that you need to write that book, and the title is already confirmed, and but it will be in Afrikaans. What's the Afrikaans version?
No, not quite. No. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
My name is Masachalabanui. I'm the CEO and founder of Indie Park Human Capital. We are your guide to building and sustaining a high-performance culture. I urge you to please do the hard things. Ask the questions. Let's get South Africa working. According to Santie, second best is not